WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. Luke Jones came over to my condo on Wednesday night. We were figuring this. It was a 6:30 tip. The game would be over at 8:30. We could sit around and do some post-game Terps, and Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh are out in Indianapolis and all that good stuff. And I said, well, I got Robert Canady coming on Thursday morning. I mean, Terps, this will be a nice little sleepy game up at State College. They'll go in there in front of a friends and family gathering and just bring it home and get ready for Michigan. Robert Canady, I got to tell you, by the time Luke got here and got parked, they were already losing by 15. I said to Luke, they got to cut this thing down below 10 before halftime. It literally was never a game on Wednesday night, right? Like, Penn State turned it into something else, and Maryland wasn't doing anything well in the first half, and it got even worse in the second half. There was an embarrassing loss, and I've said this out loud. That's how coaches get fired, those kind of losses, man. That was ugly.
Yeah, it's funny. Let's blame the early start on us all getting involved late, because Luke's parking issues and the 6:30 start caught me off guard. By the time I got home, they had already tipped off, and I had to rush in and set the DVR so I didn't miss anything. And I saw at that time it was already 14-3 or something, and I said, But slow start to them hasn't been an issue, and that's been kind of par for the course, to use a golf term, and they've always come back from it on the back nine. Like how I work these golf analogies in.
Yeah, but there's 22-point deficit at halftime, and you look at that and you're like, look, they have more talent. They have three players that are better than anybody Penn State's putting on the floor. One thing was kind of alarming for me, and I talk about sports all the time, and you're in the business of selling sports at golf down at Compass Point, and we love sports, and you love local basketball, and UMBC is going to have playoff games next week around here, and Towson, Morgan, Coppin, we're partners with Coppin, and I wear my Coppin hat here and all that stuff. I see Penn State, this venerable institution where, coordinators were raping little boys for a couple of decades under the watchful eye of Joe Pa, and they're lynching the statues there and pulling them down, and all of this stuff goes on about sports, and football's back. And then on a basketball Wednesday night, no offense to UMBC or Coppin, it looked like there might have been 2,000-3,000. No one goes to Penn State basketball games, right? Like, it's crazy in that way that nobody in the town supports it. I'm just shocked people don't walk just to be a part of it, and it's old Penn State, and on a winter night, what else are you going to do? It's amazing how sleepy, even in the Big Ten, how it's such a lopsided program, and then they beat the snot out of Maryland on the basketball court, and you're saying, after 2 weeks ago beating up on Michigan, and you're like, well, why don't people come to their games? It's sort of weird to me, Yeah, it's, yeah, sure, it's a football town, but, so is Columbus, and so is, Nebraska. Ann Arbor.
Where you get 90,000 on a Saturday in the fall, but they still put 15,000 in their arena for a game in January and February for near bottom of the pack teams, and so yeah, that's a really big question. And
they announced a crowd at 9,000. There weren't 9,000 eyeballs at the game. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I saw the shots of those the empty up arenas, and yeah, it was, it might have been 9,000 sold, counting their season ticket base of whatever it is. But yeah,
I think there were 2,800 people there, and they told them all, go down, sit by the court so it looks like somebody's here. We'll dim the lights down on the edges. I was just a little taken aback by that. I'm thinking, here's this program with billions of dollars, and, they've won it. They've been okay. They've been decent enough to say, well, we could be getting better. And they played a great game on Wednesday night, and there was nobody there to witness it. I just thought that was kind of weird.
Right, and you wonder, no excuse, absolutely. Turgeon would say no excuse, absolutely, but you wonder if that was part of Maryland coming out lethargic and never getting into it. There wasn't the environment there.
Yeah, they thought it was an intramural.
or an intramural or exhibition game or something, and that's what they played like. They just never got going. They shot poorly. They didn't rebound well. They turned it over. Their big guys didn't have a good game, and just, there's really not much good you could say about it. And, the shots at Turgeon on the sideline, he was beside himself, trying the hockey-style substitutions, pulling all five out.
Yeah, five guys sitting on the bench. Let's embarrass I think he's reaching a little bit, Rob. And I know he gets beaten up a ton on the internet, and I know He has not won games. His teams have not won games. The recruiting has been there. They've had very good players. They have guys running around the NBA, Jake Lamy, things that are going well. And you say, all right, well, when will they make magic? And look, we're all in agreement they can't make magic for 3 more weeks, right? Like whatever they do on the Thursday and the Friday and the Saturday and Sunday, if you and I get together on Monday morning, what's that date? We will measure Maryland right here. I want to make sure I get the date right because I know they moved everything back a week, right? So the actual March Madness does not begin until the weekend.
It'll be the 7th. I think.
No, it's the 21st. Yeah, so the 25th.
Monday the 25th.
You and I will get together the 25th. I will be in Phoenix, Arizona, at the Biltmore doing the owners' meetings, NFL owners' meetings. So I'm going to wake up on that Monday out in Arizona, and they're either going to be playing basketball or they're not. And if they're not, this is getting to be the time where the Mark Turgeon, look, after having a death there, throwing the football coach over the side, looking for another football coach amidst shame, amidst scandal, amidst scorn and lawsuits and all that stuff. I don't know they're going to be in the market to be looking for another basketball coach, but I know the expectations. And you know who else has empty stadium syndrome? The Maryland Terrapins on basketball nights too. It is... we don't talk about it as the epidemic that we do the Ravens and certainly, what's going to happen to the Orioles. But nobody's going to the Terps games either. And they have an identity crisis for their program down there in a lot of ways. And something that would sanitize it would be a top 25 team. They've been a top 25 team now for a month and a half, right? They're going to fall out of the top 25 after that smelly turd on Wednesday night, and they're probably going to get beaten at home, although, as Luke says, they play better at home, so maybe they can shock the world and play well and a valiant effort and a losing effort. But I don't think they're going to win this weekend. And you start to say, where's the slippage? Where's the seeding? Are they going to fall to a 7 or an 8 and have to play a 1 or a 2 on Saturday or on the 23rd or the 24th? If that happens, that's slippery, and that's where they are right now. This is a very, very tender period for the whole program. And as you know, at Penn State, they don't care about the basketball program, Rob, right? Because they got football. They don't have that around here. The basketball program is the breadwinner. And right now, bread feels like it might not have enough, enough time in the oven, right?
Yeah, I was at the Ohio State game last Saturday, and it was a pretty good crowd there. I mean, it was, I looked specifically up into the upper.
Well, there should be. They're a top 25. Yeah. It doesn't get any better than it is, right? I mean, I guess that's my point. If you're not into it right now and you're not about it right now, they're good enough to be good. They're good enough to think they might be playing a basketball game on the evening of the 28th or the 29th. They might be in the Sweet 16, right?
Yeah, the Sunday's game against Michigan will be, just like the Michigan State game, I guess, a couple of years ago during Trimble's last year. I mean, it was a final home game, big environment. Even though they'll have one more home game after that, they'll close out with Minnesota on a Friday night.
I was there at that Michigan State Trimble. I mean, I've been down there in the last 5 years when there's been some serious electricity in there, and not a seat to be had, and not a parking spot to be had, and that's not happening right here, right now for this team. And I have a feeling it's going to get blamed on the coach.
Yeah, there's definitely. I mean, there's no denying the talk that Turgeon, there's some. Prove it to me this year. What are you going to do? And I agree with you. Regardless of what happens, I mean, unless, even if there's a first-round Big Ten exit and a first-round NCAA exit, I mean, I still don't think you'd see a change, but the heat would definitely be turned up, and, next year would probably become, the hottest of hot sheets. But, like I said, I personally was willing to chalk it up to a Wednesday night, and we usually say a Tuesday night in Lincoln, Nebraska in January, but I'm willing to chalk it up to a Wednesday night in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania in late February. And, I expect them to come back and play well against Michigan and, then hopefully beat Minnesota, and we'll see what happens in the tournament. But, they were perilously close to losing that double bye. That's going to play out over these next 2 games. So, you can't say they don't have anything to play for. Right now trying to hold on to that number 4 spot, to get that double bye, because, one less game in the tournament is, one less opportunity for peril. So, if they don't beat Michigan, then they're really, putting themselves at risk as far as.
Then they got to fly to Chicago a day early.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be exactly. So, and, play one more game, which, if you're going to make a run for the conference tournament, by the time you get to Sunday evening, that extra.
How many Illinois and Northwesterns do you want to have to go through, right? Literally.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
He is Robert Canady. He's Buckets. He's Birds, Buckets and Birds out on Twitter. He is also the director of all things White Dimple Ball when it's not snowing down at Compass Point Golf. You can reach him about events. You got some stuff going on down there. I'm going to promote that and get back into the game, but you've got an event really stepping it up now. I mean, we're in March, right? So there are going to be some nice days here coming up, and you got 36 holes down there. We want to tell everybody what's going on down in Pasadena besides some stuff getting in my belly. Come down there eating good down in Anne Arundel County.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a big event just over a week away called our Irish Open. It's really kicks off the event season for us and the unofficial golf season. A lot of people say it doesn't start till Masters, which would be mid-April this year. Talking about the NCAA tournament being late, Masters is like a week later than most people are used to it as well. And those two usually go hand in hand.
Dude, I'm just trying to keep up with when Christmas and Thanksgiving are and when my birthday. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to figure all that out. But they've moved March Madness, they've moved opening day, and they've moved the Final Four. Right? So
someone moved the world on us here.
I'm pretty sure everyone's still getting drunk on March 17th. I don't think they're going to move that, but other than that, things are moving around a little bit here this month.
Yeah, so the Irish Open will kick that off. It's we still have some spots left. It's been filling up. Looks like the extended forecast looks like it'll be pretty decent golf weather that day.
Well, hold on here. It says $1 million shootout on the website. What's $1 million shootout?
So everyone that plays in the tournament, will have their name drawn in, to the hopper, if you will, and we'll pick a name out. And that person gets the chance to go out on the course with 100 and some people watching them, take one shot for a hole-in-one from about 150 yards. And if they make the hole-in-one, it's $1 million. So one person, one chance, and everyone that plays in the outing gets a chance to do that. So we've done that a few times, and we haven't had anyone win it, but it's always fun to try it. Hey, everyone, all it takes is it's like these half-course shots you see at the game sometimes during halftime. It doesn't take a lot of skill. Sometimes it just involves getting lucky. So.
I haven't hit a golf ball I guarantee you, my wife's coming up on her 5-year diagnosis. I know I have not touched a golf club since she became a brunette and then a redhead. So at some point I'm going to come down there. The doctors over at LifeBridge Health Sports Medicine Institute have sort of fixed up my left elbow a little bit, so I'm sort of back to being able, I think I can hit a baseball again. I don't know, baseball might be hard because you sort of lead with my left arm, but I've had a little left elbow. They say tennis elbow, and I'm like, I don't play tennis, and I certainly don't do it with my left elbow, but I've got the Stan the Man Stasiak thing. So when I get that together, I'm going to come out, and I'm going to feel what it feels like to have the ball, hit the end of, so I know what that ping feels like and when it shocks you. And, hey, in the cold weather, when you hit it wrong, you always know, just like baseball, right?
Oh, you absolutely do. Yeah, and by the time you're ready to do that, we'll have our new director of instruction on board named Corey, and he comes straight from New Zealand, so he has that accent, so you know what he's talking about.
So you get a Kiwi guy teaching me how to do this?
Yeah, so we'll have him give you a pointer or two and have you'll hit that ball high.
You know what I want to do on the week that you are vacationing? Seriously, okay? The week you don't want to do the show, which is probably every week, Rob, I want you to put him on with me, and I want to talk some New Zealand with him. If you've been on my Facebook this week, that picture of my wife and I on the front of the profile, that's from the Fiordland National Park on the South Island of New Zealand at a place called Doubtful Sound, which is literally at the bottom of the world. It's below Milford Sound, which is more famous, but this is a more rugged place. It was a little more expensive to get there, a little more outpost, and I thought, if I'm going to go to the bottom of the world, I'm going all the way to the bottom of the world. So that's what we did. So you can let him know that I've been South and North Island.
Absolutely, we will do that. It's funny. I've already mentioned to him, about the spot we do each week, and that he's going to be starting up an academy here. So we'll definitely have him on with you one week and let
tell him this. Where's he from? Is he from Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch? Where's he from?
I don't know.
This is why I'm putting him on the show.
And he quickly corrected me.
Hey, you know what? If I put him on the show, you'll get to learn about him. How about that?
I will. I'll sit there and listen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Robert Canady here. He's Buckets and Birds. He's down at Compass Point. We usually talk basketball. Sometimes we talk golf. Sometimes we talk culture. We never talk football because he's a Redskins fan. Although it is always more fun to talk about it with you than, let's say, a Steelers fan some years. So, Combine Week going on. I'm a conscientious objector, Robert. You know that. I did want to go to Indianapolis this weekend for one reason. Luke and I go every year, and I know a couple years ago we went to Mackey, remember, at Purdue. We've had our chances to go to Butler and some other things. I've had chances to go to Indiana Pacers games out there, but I conscientiously objected this year. I'm doing a charity turn with the National Kidney Foundation on Thursday night. I'm hanging out with my wife this weekend. I'm getting work done. I'm launching Baltimore Positive. I'm waiting for the snow to end and all that. But Indiana, I want to go to Bloomington and see a game. And I had the chance to do it when Crean was there and Harbaugh and like all that stuff, and I didn't do it. And it's on my bucket list. I don't need to see a football game at Notre Dame. I don't need necessarily to see a football game at Michigan. Some of my little, I don't need to go to Wimbledon. I don't need to. If I do, great, but I'm not. It's not what I'm seeking out. I'm seeking out more Fiordland National Parks and less Lambeau Fields because I've been to so many of them, and I tore through all these ticket stubs last night and all the cool stuff. But of all the sports things left, I've never been in the Rose Bowl and watched an event, so I'm trying to go see the Stones there this year. I don't know that I'm going to make it, but I'm going to try. But a basketball game in Bloomington is still before they get rid of it or whatever they're going to do, because that's good. I don't feel that way about Cameron, strangely enough. Maybe it's something about Bobby Knight. I don't know. I don't know what my Jones is. Maybe it's something about Pink Houses and John Mellencamp or French Lick. I don't know. But I want to go there, and they were playing it on Saturday afternoon. So if we would have gone this week, I would have done that. I would have, unless it was snowing, I would have checked that one off. And I don't know why, but the basketball part of that I feel like I missed out on that this week. But I'll tell you what, part of basketball here right now is UMBC has a chance to do something, and this is why they built the arena that they built over there locally. We still have some good basketball left around here the next week and a half, with some teams trying to make some noise, even Towson a little bit, right?
Yeah, it's UMBC, talking about, it's been a losing week, I guess, here in the area. They had come off a nice run of 9 out of 10, and then they went on a little 2-game road trip up north and followed up the great win at Vermont, which I was out there. I mean, the enthusiasm that night. You talked about, okay, as far as putting it on the scale of things, their building wasn't quite full, but the lower arena was full and the student section turned out, and that was probably one of the best environments outside of the opening night that they had last year in that place. And they beat Vermont, and then, as Ryan said, it didn't mean anything if they didn't turn around and go win it at Albany, which they did, and then topped it off by losing at Stony Brook this week as well. So,
and this is where it starts to get slippery for seeding and where you're going to play and who you're going to play, and losing games you shouldn't be losing, and especially after you beat the best team in the conference, right? And beat them in a very, to your point, giving the people a reason to want to come back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they did lock up the first round home game. They'll host the quarterfinal game. I think it's Saturday night, the 9th. I think is the first game, and they may have to go on the road after that for the next 2 games if they advance. But at least they'll have that one the one home game, and they had that last year, and it was a really neat environment. So we'll be looking forward. Unfortunately, that'll be when I'm out of town on a trip, so I won't be there for that one. But
the Albany loss was stinky, right? Losing to Stony Brook, okay, they're okay, but the Albany loss, that must have been a rough early start of the week for the lads when they came back, huh?
Yeah, and they got behind early, and again, it seems like some of the teams, it's been the trend here with this area. They got behind early and made a good run in the second half, but I think they got to within 6 points or something, and then just couldn't finish it, and ended up losing, I think, 78-63. So I mean, Stony Brook, it's a good team, and they've got some good size, and they were playing without their freshman point guard, which a lot of people, if they haven't been out to see UMBC this year, they really should. I mean, they lost Jarius Lyles and everything, but R.J. Idlerock is a freshman that's come in. Played the point and played it almost as well as anybody who's playing point guard in this area. He's just been solid.
We had Coach Odom on last week before the Vermont game. We gave him some good mojo. for that game. I probably should have had him on Friday. It might have helped the weekend. But he talked a lot about that and talked about when you lose kids, and when you lose your best kids, and there's a case to be made for Lyles being among the best in the history of the program. That is always at that level. That's very difficult to replace a special kid.
It is, and they've kind of done it by committee this year. They brought in a junior college transfer, a couple freshmen, and then they had a returning player too. But then they've been ravaged by injuries. I'm sure you guys. I mean, Ryan doesn't like to talk about that because all good coaches will say that everyone has injuries, and it's you next man up type of thing. But they have been really hit hard by injuries on the front line and everything this year, and then have Idle Rock join them. So. You hope that they go in. You hope they go into the conference season healthy, and can win 2 games, and that there'd be another showdown up there in Burlington, Vermont. Or because chances of them getting knocked off, in the first or second round are pretty slim as well. But you never know. Crazy things happen in March.
Yeah, it was a horrific week here for basketball. Topped off by the Terps, who should have gone up to Penn State. I mean, Towson, no good. Coppin, no good. Morgan, no good. It was a rough one around here.
Board, yeah.
Robert Canady here. Here's Buckets and Birds. You can hear Coppin State basketball here as they get ready for MEAC next week. Go to CoppinStateSports.com for that. And we're talking some baseball with Coach Sherman Reed as well around here. You can find all that out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. You can find Robert Canady down at Compass Point Golf. That's Compass Point with the silent E. 36 holes when the weather clears. And they're doing the Irish Open next weekend as well. All the events up for them there. Last thing for you, and I don't talk much, top 25. You buying the Gonzaga thing at this point? I mean, I guess we're talking about bubble teams and all that, which will be the next couple of weeks. But the best teams and the team that's going to win the tournament this year, sort of a fascinating case study at the top when you look at where Maryland was with Virginia and how Virginia has rebounded and had such a nice season from that loss to UMBC and their disappointment last year. But it's the Blue Bloods, right? Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, Michigan State, Maryland get their shot at Michigan this week as well, but Gonzaga at the top of all of this. I mean, are they ever really going to win a national championship, or is this the DePaul bluster of my childhood?
Yeah, that's kind of the approach I take on it. I mean, there's no doubt, there's no denying the success they have, and they have the talent and everything. But I'm among the doubters every year. I'm not from Missouri, but I still say show me, and until they're sitting there and. I know they had a close call with Carolina last year and everything, but, I've always going to consider them a very good, solid team that, is probably going to make it to at least to the 16, maybe the Elite 8 and beyond. But, I'm still looking at the Blue Bloods, as you said, the Dukes, the Kentuckys, Carolina, the big boys. But they, for a mid-major, they're still considered a mid-major. They pop up in the mid-major top 25 poll every week, which is kind of a laugh. They're topping both, topping both polls, which is probably an achievement a lot of teams can't do. So I'm still going to say okay. Good regular season, good first or second round, but I'm not going to bet my house on you when it comes down to the last weekend in April, or first weekend in April this year, I should say.
I've actually known 2 people in my life from Spokane, and when my wife and I last summer went out to Yellowstone Park, we drove up to Yellowstone to Missoula, and the only way to get out of there on a flight that didn't cost $1 million was to drive to Spokane. So it was another 2.5 or 3 hours when we woke up to get to the airport. And, man, that drive there through Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and up to Spokane, it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. And we had, the whole day in Spokane because we flew out that night. We got there kind of early. So we had a couple hours to kill, went down to the riverside, and everything about that area, Gonzaga. We went past the arena. I said to my wife, I want to drive around, see what's here, check out at diners, drive in and dive in, lunch joint. And so we did all that. So I at least I experienced it once in my life after hearing about Gonzaga and Mark Few and all that stuff for the last 20 years, really, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, it's, and, give them credit for that. They were the Cinderella that popped on the scene and
stayed.
And they stayed. They haven't left the ball. They've kept that slipper. Unlike the others, Butler had a couple-year run, and VCU had a few-year run and everything. But Gonzaga's been there, and they come back every year. And give them credit for that.
Yeah, I want to look at their records. Over when did they get good? When was their let's see, hold on here. They made tournament appearances. They got to the 16. They got to the Elite 8 in 99. 99 changed everything when they got to the 8. They've also gotten to the 8 in 15 and 17. I mean, I'm not saying they're in any way, but I'm saying at some point, are they going to get to a final? At some point, are they going to win? And we're going to be talking about them because they're not going to lose probably for a couple of weeks here, right? So the next time they lose will be when they get eliminated, probably, maybe. But, you know, it's an impressive thing. And I think to go to Spokane for a couple of hours, which is all I did, you could just smell it. And that's kind of neat. And then you look up 6 months later and they're number one in the country again. And you're like, you know, are you really going to pick them over Duke or Kentucky or North Carolina or Virginia in a big game? I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of the ones when we sit down and do our brackets in a couple of weeks. And you're right, you're sitting there and looking at them. You know, sure, you're going to give them that first and second round wins most likely. And then, you get down to that Elite 8. That's where you really, like you said, you start tapping your pen and seeing, okay, do I have the guts to pick them over Michigan State?
They've been in 9 Sweet 16s in 20 years. 9 Sweet 16s. And we have said that this year, Turgeon, that the measurement on him would be getting to this Sweet 16, right? Like, literally, that would be it.
Right, yeah. So, that's just phenomenal, for that size program and everything. And, you're right at 20 years of 99 that they came on the face and everything. So
the last year they didn't make the tournament was 1998.
Yeah. So
they've made the tournament every year. Yeah, I mean, I'm doing the math on it. It's incredible. I mean, it really is incredible.
You can say they play in a weak conference and all that.
They are.
That conferences, had teams come and go, but still every.
By the way, they lost their conference tournament because I knew that they had. They lost their conference tournament in 10, in 8, in 3, and still got bids. So there's been 3 times they've lost their conference tournament.
And still had a strong enough record as a quote-unquote mid-major to get in.
There you go. Robert Canady, Buckets and Birds. Compass Point Golf's the way to find him, and out on Twitter. He is indoor watching basketball, and hopefully it doesn't stink PU the way it has here the last week locally. We'll catch up with you, and good luck with the Irish Open. We'll see you next week, Rob.
Sounds good, Nestor. Talk to you then.
Robert Canady, Buckets and Birds, and Compass Point Golf. That's Compass Point with the silent E. I'm out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.